Right, now I want to talk about cooling towers. Again, there's some very good stuff in the accompanying YouTube videos. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about the details, but I want to explain what a cooling tower is and why we use it. Importantly, most processes that heat things, cool things, transfer heat in some way, whether it's cooking things or whether it's just simply running an air conditioner, need to be able to get rid of the excess heat. Now, a common way of doing that might be to have, like on the back of your fridge. If you look on the back, generally it's more of the older fridges. You might see a series of pipes like this. And there might be a few bits of wires welded onto it. This is the heat exchanger on the back of your fridge. The heat that comes from the inside is being dumped to the outside. Now, this works fine for something small like a fridge, but isn't going to work if you're trying to, say, air condition a whole building and get rid of all the heat from the building. So a lot of industrial processes need a much more powerful cooler. And the way that it's done is it relies on the very large latent heat of evaporation of water. So if you take water and you blow air over it, as it evaporates, it sucks up a lot of heat. It's like having wet clothing on a windy day. You get very, very cold because of that incredible amount of energy. It's something like a couple of thousand kilojoules of energy per kilogram of water are being sucked away. So people build these things called cooling towers. Now a cooling tower works this way. I've got hot water. And this might be coming from some process inside the building. It could possibly be coming from the air conditioner. So this is the hot water which is coming through the plumbing to the outside of the building from the air conditioner on the inside. So the hot water comes in, and then what we've done is we've built a series of wooden or plastic slats like this. So it's a little bit like a Venetian blind. And the idea is that the hot water comes in and it falls down and it runs over that one, it runs over this one, it runs over this one. So it just goes down and it runs layer over layer over layer and spreads itself very thin. And then it falls into something down the bottom here that can catch the water and pipe it away. Now, in order to get good evaporation and good cooling, you normally have some kind of big fan. So you have an electric motor and a fan that's blowing air over the water. It's evaporating some of it, usually maybe only 5% of the water, something quite small. And all that evaporation cools the water. So down the bottom here you've got cool water. And this can then go back to the process to get more heat to bring it to the outside again. So that's the basis behind a cooling tower. You sometimes see these hyperbolic cooling towers in big operations, things like power plants and so on. And they're exactly the same kind of thing. They've got hot water in, and it's probably going to come through a pipe like this, and it's going to flow down, and they've got lots and lots and lots of slats where the water travels over these, gets spread out very thinly, and then gets collected at the bottom and then goes back. Now they have this shape because this particular shape works very well when you don't want to put fans in. You can put fans in, but this works naturally without fans. It works by convection. So the idea is that the cold air comes in around the bottom. It blows naturally over the slats and cools them. It's exactly like the fan, but there's no fans, or many of them in fact actually do have boost fans in the top to help to suck it through if things aren't working fast enough for them. So these are called hyperbolic cooling towers. They're called that because of the shape. This is a a hyperbolic shape. It's one of these kind of graphs. So do have a look at the online accompanying material. There's quite a good discussion of that. The last thing I want to say about these, and this is something that you might get involved in if you were one of the people working in a lab or working in a factory where they had cooling towers, is that the cooling towers actually require quite a bit of maintenance. Now let's come back to this one for a moment. Imagine what's happening here. You've got to have air coming in, and you probably have some screens to stop people and birds and leaves and things getting into it, but dust and other things is going to go straight through that and be trapped by the water. So the dust, along with bacteria and viruses and pigeon poo and all kinds of things like that, gets into the water and ends up in here. Now this water is never completely cold, it's usually slightly warm. And this is a perfect place to grow bacteria, to grow all kinds of obnoxious things. Also, any dust with soluble minerals is going to get in here, so the cooling water which goes back is often a bit dirty. So you've got to maintain it, you've got to filter it, you've got to add things to kill the bacteria, to kill the slimes, the various amoeba and molds and yeasts and other things which will grow in this nice warm water on the plates. If you don't do that, the whole thing becomes very contaminated very quickly. So typically, to look after one of these things, you've got to add what are called slimicides and antibacterials and corrosion inhibitors to stop the oxygenated water from corroding metals, and various chemicals which are designed to keep the whole thing operating. If you don't kill bacteria, you run a risk of a number of actually very unhealthy conditions. One of them, which has an interesting history, is a thing called Legionnaire's disease.